What would you do if someone carved a door into your world, uninvited, and called it their own? On a quiet Wyoming ranch, where the wind hums secrets through the sagebrush, I learned the answer to that question the hard way. My name is Elias Turner, and my 200-acre spread, nestled against the Bighorn Mountains, was my sanctuary until Karen Whitlock decided it wasn't just mine. It started with a fence. Not just any fence, mind you, but a gleaming white picket monstrosity that appeared overnight, slicing through the edge of my property like a knife through butter. Karen, my new neighbor, had moved into the adjacent plot of modest 10 acres she'd bought from Old Man Carver's estate. I'd met her once at the general store in Graybull. She had a sharp smile, the kind that promised trouble, and eyes that sized you up like you were a calf at auction. "I'm building my dream," she'd said, clutching a coffee and a planner stuffed with fabric swatches. I nodded, tipped my hat, and thought nothing of it. Dreams, I figured, were her business, until her dream trespassed onto mine. The gate came next. I found it one crisp October morning, bolted into my ranch yard's northern fence line. It was sturdy, oak with a brass latch that screamed money. Beyond it, a gravel path led straight to Karen's backyard, where her new patio gleamed under string lights. She'd cut through my land to make her view prettier, her life easier. No permission, no conversation, just a gate, like she owned the place. I stood there, boots sinking into the dew-soaked grass, my blood simmering. This wasn't just a gate. It was a declaration. I knocked on her door that afternoon, my temper leashed but straining. Karen answered in a sundress, her smile as polished as her gait. "Elias, like the gate? It's so much better than trudging around the long way. Don't you think?" Her tone was syrupy, like she was doing me a favor. I clenched my jaw. "It's on my land, Karen. You didn't ask." Her smile didn't waver. "Oh, Elias, it's just a little gate. We're neighbors. We share things." I told her to take it down. She laughed, like I'd told a joke, and shut the door. That night I couldn't sleep. The ranch had been my father's, and his father's before him. Every fence post, every blade of grass, was soaked in their sweat. Karen's gate wasn't just a trespass, it was an insult to their memory. By dawn I'd made up my mind. If she wanted a gate, I'd give her something else entirely. I called in Javier, my old friend and the best mason in 3 counties. He showed up with his truck, a grin, and a crew of 4. "You sure about this, Eli?" he asked, eyeing the gate. I nodded. "Build me a wall, Javi. Brick, tall, strong enough to stop a tank." His grin widened. "That's the spirit." We worked through the night. The gate came down in pieces, its brass latch glinting in the moonlight like a fallen star. By sunrise, a brick wall stood in its place 8 feet high, 2 feet thick, stretching 50 yards along the boundary. It was a fortress, unyielding, a monument to my resolve. I stood back, hands on hips, as the first rays of dawn painted the bricks gold. Karen's path now ended at a red brick cliff. Let her try to share that. She came storming over at 7 a.m., her face a mask of fury. "What is this?" she shrieked, gesturing at the wall. I leaned against a post, calm as a summer breeze. "It's my land, Karen. My wall." Her eyes narrowed. "You can't do this. I'll sue." I shrugged. "Go ahead. Property lines don't lie." She stomped off, muttering about lawyers, but I felt a flicker of triumph. The ranch was mine again. Days passed, and I thought that was the end of it. But Karen wasn't done. She was cleverer than I'd given her credit for, and I'd underestimated the depths of her spite. One evening, as I rode the fence line on my mare, Daisy, I spotted something odd, a glint of metal in the sagebrush. I dismounted and found a small camera, hidden in a fake rock, pointed at my yard. Karen was watching me. My stomach twisted. This wasn't about a gate anymore. It was war. I didn't confront her this time. Instead, I played her game. I installed my own cameras, motion sensors, even a floodlight that blazed like the sun if anything crossed the wall. I caught her on video one night, sneaking through the brush with bolt cutters, eyeing my new defenses. She didn't touch anything, just stood there, staring at the wall like it was a puzzle she'd solve. I started locking my gates, checking my locks twice. Sleep became a stranger. Then came the twist I never saw coming. One morning, a stranger knocked on my door, a wiry man in his 60s, with weathered hands and a quiet voice. "Name's Amos," he said, removing his hat. "I used to work for Carver years back. Karen's been talking to me." My guard went up. "What's she want with you?" Amos sighed, his eyes heavy with something like guilt. "She's got papers, Elias. Old ones. Says Carver promised her family a right-of-way through your land. Says it's legal." I felt the ground shift beneath me. A right-of-way. Carver had never mentioned it. Not in all the years I'd known him. Amos handed me a yellow document, stamped with a notary's seal from 1978. It was realer, looked real enough to make trouble. Karen wasn't just a nosy neighbor. She'd been planning this, digging into history, weaponizing the past. "Why tell me?" I asked. Amos rubbed his neck. "I don't like her game. Never did trust folks who smile like that." I spent days poring over the document with my lawyer, Clara, a sharp woman who'd grown up on a ranch herself. She confirmed it. The right-of-way was valid, buried in Carver's old deeds. Karen could legally demand access through my land. My wall, my fortress, was useless. Worse, if she pushed, I'd have to tear it down and pay her legal fees. The triumph I'd felt curdled into dread. I didn't sleep that night either. I sat on my porch, staring at the wall, its bricks mocking me. I'd built it to protect what was mine, but it had only escalated things. Karen wasn't just fighting for a gate, she was fighting to prove she could win. And I'd played right into her hands. The next morning, I made the hardest choice of my life. I called Javier again. "Tear it down," I said, my voice hollow. He didn't argue, just nodded and got to work. By dusk, the wall was gone, replaced by a simple chain-link fence, legal and unremarkable. Karen's path was open again. She stood at her patio that evening, sipping wine, her smile victorious. I didn't wave back. But the story doesn't end there. A week later, Amos came by again, this time with a confession. "I lied," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Karen paid me to forge that document. Ain't no right-of-way. Never was." I stared at him, my heart pounding. "Why tell me now?" He looked away, ashamed. "She's plannin' to sell her place. Wants to jack up the price with your land as her backyard." I couldn't let that stand. I should have felt vindicated, but all I felt was empty. I'd lost the battle, torn down my wall. And for what? A lie. Clara filed charges against Karen for fraud. But it didn't matter. The ranch didn't feel like mine anymore. Every time I looked at that chain-link fence, I saw her smile, her victory. I'd fought for my home, my legacy, and I'd lost to a woman who'd turned my world into her game board. In the end, I sold the ranch. Not to Karen, she'd already moved on, her house listed for double its value. I sold it to a young couple, dreamers like I'd once been. They didn't know about the gate, the wall, or the war. I didn't tell them. Some stories are better left buried. As I drove away, the Bighorn Mountains fading in my rearview, I wondered if I'd ever find peace again. Karen had one, not because she was right, but because she'd known how to twist the knife. The ranch was gone, and with it, a piece of my soul. Nd.